Welcome to Let's Chew the Gum. I'm your host, Protocol. We talk a lot about a lot of things in this show while we chew the gum, and just like every show, we always have
something for your mind, something for your mind, something for your
무엇인가 정신에 집어넣으세요. 어떤 것 필요합니까?
something for your
정신에 집어넣으세요. 정신에 집어넣으세요.
something for your
Can you believe it? 50 episodes. That is great. A great milestone for me. I'm ecstatic about that. More than happy. So glad that all of you have been listening in for all 4 seasons. Have a great show. Just a year-end recap. You know, my show, this episode's been a little bit modified. I had it in mind to bring on lots of guests and we just chatted up and talk about it, but there have been some not setbacks, but situations where that just did not become possible. So I'm here, but I am taking, and I will address so many questions and comments that people send in. As you know, someone's going to win $50. Wish it could be 50,000. Someone's going to win $50. The posts have, the response has been, magnificent from the posts that were on Facebook and Instagram about this 50th episode and the $50 giveaway. All you had to do was email me with your favorite episode or a question or a comment about the program, and you were entered to win. So we definitely have a winner. All entries were cut off at 5 p.m. on December 29th. And so we'll announce that winner at the end of the episode. So be sure to stick around for that at the end. Hopefully you won. We'll see. Can't wait to give away more next year. So some of you are listening right now and it's already 2022. So happy new year to you guys as well as those of us that some are anticipating or waiting. The clock is ticking. Time stops for no one. So again, happy new year to all of you. Welcome to Let's Chew the Gum, people. Welcome to Let's Chew the Gum, the 50th episode. And for the last time this year, I'm going to explain why it's called Let's Chew the Gum. Not that I won't explain it again next year, but this will be the last show for the year. Last show for 2021. I can't believe it. So Let's Chew the Gum started basically because I was chewing gum during a class I was teaching at the university. And I had been chewing gum because I like to chew gum because it gives me focus and it gives me a breathing pattern and it helps me to regulate my breathing. I get I'm zeroed in when I'm playing sports or writing papers or whatever it may be. So this particular day, again, I forgot I had gum before I was going to start my lecture. And halfway into the lecture, I realized I was chewing gum. And I apologized to the class because traditional etiquette says you shouldn't chew gum and talk, blah, blah, blah. And I was, so I apologized. But apparently the lecture had been going so well. The students were so engaged that they didn't mind at all. And they encouraged me to continue on chewing the gum. And I said, okay, well then let's chew the gum. And so Let's Chew the Gum was born from that moment. And really chewing the gum is similar to the phrase, let's chew the fat, where we just talk about topics. So this is Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we're chewing the gum. And I'm chewing my gum. I was thinking, should I reveal information about the sponsorship I passed up for a gum company, but we'll save that for another time. I'm chewing the gum right now. You're chewing the gum with me. Let's continue. Again, as I said, I have a great show today. We're going to really focus on your questions that were submitted, some of your favorite episodes that you submitted to me via email. And then we'll talk about my favorites and we're going to look at the top 5. What were the top 5 episodes for Let's Chew the Gum from all 5 seasons? This is based upon not viewers' opinions, but the analytics of which shows were downloaded or listened to the most. Speaking of downloading and listening to, if you're new to the podcast, remember you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Podbean and Spreaker and Google Podcasts. Did I say that? Spotify, Anchor, through your web browser. You can catch us on TuneIn, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere podcasts are downloaded. You can find us there. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm looking forward to this episode. Let's get right to it. So, again, I invited folks to submit questions for this last episode, just to kind of do a recap. You know, like most shows, end of the year, we become reflective and looking back on the year we've had or the experiences we've had for a particular time. And this show will be no different. So I'm going to jump right into them. And so the first question, that's a heavy one. The first question was, why did you focus on race? Why did you feel it was important to focus on race? And this one is from Samuel in Augusta, Georgia. And yeah, there were a few episodes throughout the 4 seasons where I focused on race. And I felt that definitely felt it was important to talk about those in a real way. Again, if you guys listen to the show, there's no sugarcoating. We talk about the topics that are there because they're important. It's much like the approach I have in the classroom in teaching history. And I let everyone know we're going to talk about history the way it was and the way it is as we're continuing to write it. And we're not going to mix our words and mince our words. We're not going to sugarcoat it, because there's a lot of, as I always say, low down, terrible, disgusting things in history that have happened, and they happen. So I don't shy away from talking about it, because the one thing I do know is that my students appreciate the truth when it comes to history. And I've had the experience of remembering in colleges where students would say, well, you know, they discovered something about history that they never knew or had been told a different story, and they were in shock and a little disappointed that they were not taught those things in school. So I always made it a point to say, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat or mislead or tell falsehoods to my students about what happened in history. I know when many of us grew up, maybe adults or parents or others would, you know, think that children weren't ready. And there are definitely times for everything, right? Every topic is not for every age group. But many of us grew up in a place where, or in a time or a culture where those things weren't talked about because they're harmful or they're bad or sad. And I've always thought about the people who have to live those or who have lived those experiences, how difficult it must have been for them. So, yeah, I chose to talk about race also because I feel like when we talk, we're communicating, we gain an understanding, we get insights, and we gain perspectives that we may not have had. And it allows this space. Hopefully, you have the environment that I create in my realm of safety, right? So it's a safe place to talk. I hope all of you have felt that this podcast was a safe place to talk, a safe place for you to submit your ideas as I've addressed them on the air. So that's what it's all about, communication. So there you go, Samuel. I could go on and on about, you know, why I focused on race, but, you know, it's a thing. As much as it's socially constructed, right? And race really isn't a thing. It was something that was constructed in order to categorize people, to disempower some groups while others were empowered. And maybe I'll touch upon that a little bit more at the end of this show, because otherwise this show will end up being about race, which is not a bad thing. But we'll talk about that social construct. Let me see the next question. This one comes from Lebanon. I would say all the way from Lebanon, but if you're in Lebanon listening, that may be just around the corner, right? Shout out to Nadia in Lebanon. She asked, will I do any investigative journalism in 2022? For example, the Pandora Papers. Nadia, yeah, I'm very interested in investigative journalism. As far as such as the Pandora Papers, depending if I wanted to, uncover something at that particular level. For those that are not aware, the Pandora Papers refer to, how can I describe them? It refers to quite a few individuals actually, where it was discovered that they were either harboring or hiding millions, if not billions of dollars from taxpayers, from regular citizens, and not necessarily in offshore accounts. Sure, some were offshore. And when we say offshore, I have to think of the perspective of my audience. In the United States, offshore would be, maybe they think about banks in the Caribbean, Switzerland, or somewhere else. But these accounts were also some accounts that were here and being trust accounts here in the United States, particularly in the state of South Dakota. I think I have a question from someone in the Dakotas. And so it was discovered that several high-ranking officials, from the King of Jordan to Vladimir Putin and many of his associates, were stockpiling millions and multiple millions of dollars in various accounts under shell companies. So am I going to go to that extent? Could be. It just depends on what comes up. I'm all about, again, audience members like yourself, Nadia, who have an interest in topics. And if that's a show topic that people want to discuss, sure. But I do like investigative journalism, and I prefer investigative journalism over some of the things we see in the news daily. Everything is all about, headlines and, quick responses and knee-jerk responses, as opposed to individuals taking time to really investigate, source, cross-reference with sources and, for a period of time to really get the story right, as opposed to just wanting the headline to get, viewers and followers and readers. So thank you, Nadia in Lebanon. What do we have next? From San Francisco, California. This is from Brett. How you doing, Brett? The question is, what challenges do you face when producing a podcast? Oh my goodness, what are the challenges I face when producing? Remembering to turn the microphone on. No, I've actually done that once, where I may have been talking for, I don't know, a bit of time. I don't know if it was 5 or 10 minutes, but then realized that I hadn't turned on my microphone, but it was okay. But challenges I face, really, I don't know if there's a challenge. There's never a lack of show topics, topics that I have an interest in myself, or those that listeners request. Challenges, maybe I'm not the best editor. I do all of my podcasting myself, the editing, producing, yada yada yada. I do all of that. I'm not the best editor, so maybe that's a resolution, and I don't like resolutions. Just something that I may pick up is editing skills, advanced editing skills. I think I do pretty okay for what I'm doing now. Is that a challenge? Or yeah, perhaps. I want to really give you a specific answer as to something that I have experienced. What challenges do you face when producing a podcast? Maybe the challenge is it's going to maybe sound more simple than what you might think, but making sure that I have my phone turned down in the studio, or that there are no other devices in the background coming on, or off type noises that occur. Maybe that's it. Not too many challenges so far, which is good. All right. This is from Baby New Year in New York. How appropriate. Baby New Year. And I was just talking about resolutions. This one says, what is my resolution for 2022? What is my New Year's resolution? Okay, Baby New Year. I was just saying I really don't like resolutions. I think anytime someone wants to improve themselves is a great thing. For me, it doesn't have to be because it's a new year, but I think that, we associate ourselves with these time periods and markers, milestones throughout life. And the new year happens to be one, I suppose. Someone could mark it from the solstice or a birthday or an anniversary or whatever. But as far as resolutions, early on in my life, I used to, fall into the whole thing with, this year I'm going to, I don't know, get better grades in school, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to work out more, or, whatever it may be. But over the years, I think that it's a matter of daily reflection for me. What can I reflect upon daily to always improve? Because I think sometimes and this is just for me personally, again, shout out to everybody with a resolution. I support that. But for me personally, if I'm looking only to resolve things or to have a resolution based upon a year, what did I do that entire year before that I did not resolve or change that I could have? So, maybe a year is too long for me to wait to think about changing, especially if it's something that's harmful or not productive or not the most efficient. So again, I tend to have a process of daily reflection where I'm looking at my day to see, what ways could I improve, or were there opportunities missed to help someone? Did I give the best advice? Was I the best listener? That type of thing. So I try to be, more conscientious of, my actions on a daily basis. I can tell you resolutions I would hope that others would take. I can say that easily. One of them is, I get really fed up is not the word. I feel bad for people who subscribe to this sort of binary agenda, this binary approach to life. We can, if you want to think political parties, whether it's Democrat or Republican, you could think mask or no mask, vaxxers and non-vaxxers, anything like that that's binary. I don't like it because it doesn't make room for everybody. And so many people are forced to choose a side. Are you Democrat or are you Republican? And I've always said that a binary system is not diverse enough to encapsulate or incorporate everyone's ideal philosophical thinking, whatever it may be, culture, language, group, approach, whatever it may be, two ways. So, I'm going to reveal something right now that I've thought of all year because it's bothered me. And since I did one of I think it bothered me for longer, but I was going to say since I did the show on from the U.S. Capitol or the storming of the Capitol earlier this year, but just looking at what happened there and thinking about a lot of the friends and associates that I have in this case who happen to be, and here we go again with the race association, but people who happen to be what is considered white, which it's troublesome for me to even say that. And I've always said, like, what is white? I'm going to do a whole episode on the history of race constructions in America and how it served to really weaken the populace. But when you see situations that happened at the Capitol, or you hear about racist cops, or you hear about racist people, and people will say, white people this and white people that. That bothers me because, I'm so aware that in any race of people or any group of people, it doesn't have to be a race. It could be any group of people. There are good and bad people everywhere. And so I think it's been difficult for a lot of people. And in this particular case, as I'm identifying with white people, when you have to choose between two parties, but you don't have to, which way do you go? There's so many white people I know who are disaffected by both parties. There are definitely white people I know who are disaffected with the Republican Party that consider themselves conservatives and Republicans, but they don't subscribe to any of some of the nonsense that we've seen happening. And the same on the Democratic side. They have voted that way traditionally, but they don't subscribe to all that's there. And that's why binary systems don't incorporate enough. They don't incorporate or aren't large enough to fit everyone's ideology. Right. So if you're saying white people are Republicans or all people are all white, all Republicans are white, which we know is not true, but these are the kind of things that are said. Or just, again, white people who are disaffected by both parties. So earlier this year, I had the idea, and if you guys see this happen or formulate it, remember you heard it here first on Let's Do the Gum from Dr. K. A new party. You know how they have the alt-right, the alternative right-wing party. How about an alt-white? Like there's off-white paint, there's white paint and off-white. How about an alt-white party? A political party where white people who don't subscribe to what's going on in their particular party can form a different party. White people who are, for whatever reason, upset, turned off because they've had to be placed in this category that hasn't had the best light shown on who they are as people. Alt-white. I'll be the party chairman. No, but I'm really serious. There has to be other ways to go for everybody in terms of this non-binary. So a resolution I'd like to see some people make is to make better choices, to not feel like they have to go with the crowd, to not get caught up in these systems that really divide folks. Do something alternative. Be who you are. It only takes one person to make that change. You saw it with, these are not endorsements of the people I'm about to mention. These are not endorsements of them as people in terms of parties they started, but Theodore Roosevelt, Ross Perot, or others who started different political parties, but for good reasons. Let's not have an alt-white that's out to do damage, but in all ways, let's support one another. All right, I put a little more time into that one than I wanted to. I want to write that down really quick. Alt-white, I'll bring that back up as a political party. And then that way, when the next election comes, make some noise. You can make a difference, right? We don't want to split, the party so much so that your vote becomes less effective. Vote how you want to vote, but make your intentions known, whether you're starting a new caucus or, influencing the platform. Make your voices heard. Good people. All right. Let's see. Resolution. Okay. This next question comes from Jackie from the Standing Rock Sioux. And her question is very similar to one that on a previous show. As a matter of fact, the last show, it may have been the show before the last show, but there was a question from Jose G in Puerto Rico, and I said I was going to address his question later. It just so happens that Jackie from the Standing Rock Sioux has a similar question, and they're both regarding Native American History Month. I'll go back to Jose's first. Jose from Puerto Rico had asked, he was talking about Columbus Day and Native American History Month, and was I going to bring on any guests for Native American History Month, and also address thoughts about Columbus Day. Jackie's question was, she noticed that I had did a 4-part series, I believe, on Hispanic Heritage Month, which is in October, and wondered why I did not really why I did not, but was I going to, did I have any intention on highlighting Native American History Month? And it's much the way I feel about Black History Month, and even Hispanic Heritage Month. I think these things are topics that are all year. It's great and necessary, I think, to observe them, because there's so many people that are not aware of the histories or have not been taught, which would still mean they're not aware, but maybe they are ill-informed about the importance of Native American history. So I tend to teach it in my classes all the time. I can't teach U.S. history without teaching Native American history. I can't teach world history without teaching. I can't teach American history, so it's always there. Add to that the fact of my own Native American heritage. So we're creating history every day. But yes, I do intend to, and I'll tell you sort of why I didn't specifically. As some of you know, I have a TV channel on Watch TV. Shameless plug here, but you can check that out on Roku and Amazon Fire TV on Watch TV. And it just so happens, Jackie, that I have been in production for on a documentary on Native American history. And at that point, I did not want to sort of open that up, because it would be difficult for me not to already talk about what I'm doing in production for that. So not intentionally, didn't ignore it for sure. I can't ignore who I am, but that's why. So hopefully 2022 sometime, if we're so fortunate, blessed to be here, we'll see that production come to fruition. So Jose, I hope that answered your question as well, including there'll be some talking there on Columbus Day and how, many folks have stopped honoring Columbus because of the atrocities that he and his crews perpetrated upon native peoples here in the Western Hemisphere and all that entails. So that'll be coming up. Good questions. I'm going to take a few more questions, and then we're going to go to take a quick break. So let's see. Okay, so all of these questions are about sort of the superlatives. You guys remember, some of you, I know I have quite a few folks who are still in high school that listen. Shout out to all my listeners between the ages of 17 and, well, let's just say high school and then, others. But a lot of you still listen. In high school as a senior, you had the senior superlatives, your best this and best that and most likely that. Well, this is a series of those questions. So let me take those. Let's see. Someone said, what was my favorite episode to do? Man, there were so many insightful, fun, important ones. But my favorite episode, probably my first episode, my very first one. Oh, by the way, this comes from June in Fort Lauderdale. My first episode, it sounds kind of corny a little bit, but that's the one that started it. It started with the thought before, the day in class. But the first episode, was the beginning. Every journey starts someplace with the first step, and that was my first step, having never done a podcast before, but definitely something that I wanted to do, just as I'm sharing with you guys each week, different thoughts and topics. And my first episode, it happened to have been with my son, and it was just talking about his career pathways through music and fitness and more. And it was pretty fun. That's my favorite. And to see, where he is now and where he's progressed from that time to being a certified trainer with multiple certifications and still a very accomplished musician. And it's just been great. So, I purposely had him on first. So that was my favorite. And I would say that the next favorite after that was, I believe it was on April 3rd of 2020. Was it 2020? Maybe 2021. No, 2021. And that episode was about still celebrating the class of 2020. Last year for 2020, I did a program. I started a program called Instagrad with a D, Instagrad 2020. The website is still up. Go check it out, instagrad2020.net, where once we shut down with COVID, I took it upon myself to celebrate initially just my students, my seniors in high school. And then I realized there were so many other seniors. And then my master's degree students were not graduating. So all these people that weren't graduating. So it, as a thought about who it was affecting in terms of graduate, it was overwhelming, because I'm thinking, first locally, then, regionally, and then nationally, and then worldwide. There's so many people who were not going to be able to cross the stage and graduating from all ages, whether it's kindergarten through doctoral degree students, 12-step programs, all those types. You can see more about that on the website instagrad2020.net. But what I decided to do was to celebrate them, just to acknowledge them all year long, all year. So we did mock graduations every month on the 20th of the month, because it was 2020's class of 2020. There was always some celebration. So I gave away literally close to $10,000 in cash and prizes and foods, and it was just great to be a part of that, to honor them. And so my next favorite episode was this year, still celebrating. It was so great, I couldn't just cut it off. So I still celebrate them. Instagram page, you can check out Instagram 2020, still doing things or hiring students from that particular class for projects with the TV channel or whatever. So that was the next favorite. Thank you, June from Fort Lauderdale. Let's see. Spontaneous. What's the most spontaneous episode? And it's funny you say that, because I do have a plan. I did have an episode that was not planned. It was strictly spontaneous. It was in response to a story that came out from about the U.S. Capitol. There was a senator or representative who made the statement or suggested that Black Lives Matter movement didn't believe in old-fashioned family or family values. And by the way, this is from the Netherlands, this question. DQ from the Netherlands. I wonder what that stands for. Thank you for that. But yeah, that was pretty spontaneous. And I thought that, when I see stories like that, sometimes it's, you can read a story and let a story go by. But with such false information, I felt a little bit compelled to completely do a 180 and change directions on the show I had intended. I don't even remember the show I was going to do, but that was the most spontaneous, where we addressed that episode. And yeah, there was that. The most negative feedback, this is from, Mehmet, United Arab Emirates. Welcome aboard. The most negative feedback I've received on a show, I usually receive challenging feedback. It's usually not negative, and I try not to see it that way. If someone has a difference of opinion or they challenge something, I say I welcome it. It's like with even, it's in my nature to welcome opposing viewpoints, because I want to discuss. I want people to feel free and safe to discuss their points of view. So I wouldn't view it as negative, but I did receive what you might call some negative feedback from an episode I did in February. As a matter of fact, it was February 5th of this year, 2021. I did an episode entitled White Supremacy Created Black History Month. And in that, I presented just information about if there was not white supremacy, we wouldn't need Black History Month. And I think what started that topic was me knowing teachers who would talk about why we had Black History Month, or do we need a Black History Month? And, and my stance was, I wish we didn't have to have it. But if it wasn't for white supremacy, we wouldn't have it, because Black History Month was a direct response to the lack of representation, the overabundance of misinformation, the degradation and segregation of Black people, the racism that Black people had faced historically and contemporarily in the United States, that made folks say, you know what, we need a time to reflect on ourselves, to tell our stories to our children, to our posterity, to our people about who we really are, as opposed to accepting the false narratives and the overabundance of false narratives that were being produced in the media, right, which was being ingrained in people to where, people would, be misinformed and miseducated about Black people. So if there was a equitable, loving environment and situation where white supremacy did not exist, then my thought was we probably wouldn't have a Black History Month. And so that one got some, maybe what you would consider negative feedback from people, and that's fine. I don't mind that at all. I don't mind that. I love the dialogue. At least it got people talking, which is the point of Let's Chew the Gum. To talk, to discuss, right? So it's an opportunity for me to hear and learn, for me to talk and teach and listen. So that was great. All right. Most fun episode. Oh, okay. So the other one was the favorite. This is the most fun. Rafael from Argentina. How you doing, Rafael? The most fun episode probably was, I did a show on, used to be a series called Empire on Fox, starring Terrence Trent Howard and Taraji Henson and a few other stars in there. And someone I grew up with in Detroit is an actor, and he served as a stand-in for Terrence Howard on the show. And so that was a pretty fun episode, just talking to him, knowing the ways of Detroit, and then to see him on the big screen. And really, for me personally, watching the series, and most people probably wouldn't even notice or recognize, but me being able to pick out the scenes where it was actually him standing in for Terrence Howard and not Terrence Howard. They really look alike. But that was a lot of fun, just for the reconnect and the just the contemporary appeal for that particular show. That was fun. The Instagrad 2020 was fun also. All right. Most serious. What was the most serious show? Wow. Okay. This is from Miguel in Portugal. Let me just say, these last few questions I've been taking, some were from here in the United States, but this last few have been from international. And I appreciate all of you guys listening on an international scale. That means the world to me. No pun intended. Get that? International means the world to me. So thank you for that. All right, Miguel from Portugal. The most serious episode, there were a few, because I did episodes on race and racism and the storming of the Capitol, and those are very serious topics. But this one, for me, that I would consider the most serious was one on substance abuse. I had a guest, Deborah Miniman, who had previously been and I don't know if what can we call it, drug abuser, substance abuser, right? She had been afflicted with that issue, but she completely transformed herself to become educated and to acquire certifications to where now she serves as an advisor, a counselor of sorts for people suffering from substance abuse. So why is that one more serious than the others on race and white supremacy? Because this one, it's not that racism doesn't affect everybody, but substance abuse has no face. It could be anyone. You can describe a situation and you might put a face to it, but it could be anyone, any one of us. And so that one brought a lot of help and resources to people who were suffering substance abuse. This episode happened during the crisis of COVID. We're still in a crisis, but this is when it was still new. And so we really looked at, folks who were really going through depressive states and folks that could not get access to the services to help them deal with substance abuse, whether it was meetings or doctor's appointments or appointments with the mental health counselor, etc., because everything was shut down. And so I was happy to do that show on substance abuse. All right, one more, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back with your favorite episodes. All right. And then the top 5. And don't forget, there's someone's going to win $50. And again, I wish it was $50,000. I think I want to add something to that. It'll be $50 plus, 50 plus something. We'll see. All right. So this next question is, what was the most inspiring? Oh my goodness. I'm so inspired by all these episodes. They're all, personal to me. I'm always inspired. I'm a person that never lacks inspiration. There's so much work to be done in the world, and I'm surrounded by so many amazing people that continue to inspire me. There's so many I could name, whether I work with you as a colleague, or we worked together in the past on a conference, or we've written books or whatever. Very inspired by all of you. But the most inspiring episode, I would think it would be the episode I did on Women's History Month. I sort of went through my top 10 in women's history, my favorite women in history. That may have been a 2-part episode, but that was very inspiring because everyone that I mentioned was someone who inspired me in some way. It was either their story, what they overcame, maybe a few of them I met personally, definitely read their works or their books or followed their career path or their service to humanity. So that was probably the most inspiring to me. I was very, very happy and honored to be able to recognize those individuals. And that question was from Desmond in South Africa, by the way. Desmond in South Africa. So speaking of Desmond, rest in peace to Bishop Desmond Tutu. And Desmond, I don't know if you're named after Desmond Tutu, but he was definitely an inspiration to me. Speaking of inspiring, growing up, he's someone that I listened to as a young kid, someone that inspired me to become actively involved in social justice issues, including, the freeing of Mandela, where friends of mine would go and march and protest and boycott to have Nelson Mandela freed, or even going way back to bringing awareness to the need for Dr. King's birthday to be recognized as a U.S. holiday. So Bishop Tutu, obviously influenced so many people. So Desmond, that's kind of timely that your question was about inspiring, the most inspiring. And again, Desmond from South Africa. I'm not sure if you're named after the Bishop Desmond Tutu who recently passed, but thank you for that. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum. It's been really great going over and taking the questions. One of you is going to win $50 plus something at the end. So we'll be right back.
Where do you watch TV?
On Watch TV.
Nowhere.
On Watch TV.
What's on Watch TV?
On Watch TV is one of the most exciting channels on Roku and Amazon Fire TV, with lots of categories to choose from movies to music, documentaries, and more. There's something for everyone.
What if people want to place their content on Watch TV?
you can visit the website onwatchtv.net to find out more, or email onwatchtv@gmail.com. Don't forget, check out On Watch TV. See you on Watch TV.
See you on Watch TV.
On Watch TV is available now on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Check it out. On Watch TV. Thank you for listening to our sponsors. We're back. This is Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum. Guys, this is our 50th episode. 50th episode. What a milestone for me. I never would have imagined that. And again, it's all because of you, the listeners from all around the world. For this episode, I've been taking your questions and comments with the anticipation of rewarding someone who emailed in with $50 plus something else that I'll add on to that. And you'll win that prize. I'm looking forward to that at the end. Right now, I want to go ahead and look into what you guys consider your favorite episodes. A few of you, quite a few people, emailed in with their favorite episode, and I want to look at the top 5, or actually the first 5. Well, these are randomly picked. I'm going to look at the top 5 of all time favorites based upon audience views, but I'm going to first look at the 5 that were selected from the emails that were sent in. All right, so top 5 episodes from the viewers that emailed. Let me see. These were all exciting episodes. They were all a lot of fun. And these are all, well, let's see, 4 internationals and 1 here locally in the United States. So we'll start with Anthony from the United Kingdom. His favorite episode was he has 2. He has 2. Okay. And they were close together. One was on June 18th of this year. One was on June 25th. So Anthony's favorite episode was the episode on Juneteenth. That was a pretty good episode. I decided to do that one to kind of give some insights. I get so many questions about what Juneteenth is, what it's about. This year, as you know, it was made a national holiday in the United States. And so then there really was more questions about it. It's a holiday that's been celebrated for quite a long time, actually. So folks have talked about it frequently, mostly celebrated in the African American community, as it is an African American holiday that recognizes the ending of slavery as we knew it in the United States, which happened on June 19th. Again, a group of slaves who had not been informed, probably so many. And as a matter of fact, I know there were many because there was a story that surfaced last year, a few years back, about individuals who had still been enslaved. And this is in the 1960s, early 70s, and they had never known that slavery had ended. But that was Juneteenth. Anthony's next favorite episode was the following week. So, Anthony, you were locked in and came back, and you're still with me to this day. So shout out to you, Anthony, from the UK. His next episode was CRT, an episode I did on critical race theory, which was timely to do after the Juneteenth episode, because many people would have ideas that somehow teaching Juneteenth was critical race theory. And I chose in that episode on critical race theory to clarify what critical race theory is and what it's not. Again, there was so much irrationality around critical race theory and what it is. And there we go again, back with the whole binary thing. You're either for or against, with many people not even having a thorough investigation or knowledge of what it may be. Hence my invitation for folks to start an alt-white party, for folks that don't subscribe to either of the agendas of both parties, or maybe you subscribe to some, but you have other ideas that are more in line with who you are. So that was Anthony. The next one, Ryan from Brazil. Thank you, Ryan from Brazil. His favorite episode was actually a 5-part episode on Hispanic Heritage Month. that was a great, those were great episodes. I got to interview, had some very excellent guests on for Hispanic Heritage Month. If you didn't get a chance to check those out, people, check those out. Those were all for the month of October. Very insightful information from all those guest folks who were renowned in their community, locally and nationally. Some great stories. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Ryan, thank you for chewing the gum with me. We have Jesse, not Jessica, Jesse G. Jesse G. It sounds like a DJ, Jesse, from Seattle, Washington. His was actually, and it is he. Thank you. Jesse's episode was, his favorite episode was school opening with COVID. Schools reopen with COVID. And that was also a 4-part series where we had parents and teachers and officials from the California Teachers Association and others who came on 4 separate episodes to discuss the implications and ramifications, their thoughts, their insights, ideas, fears, and knowledge about students returning to school with COVID. And so I brought to you quite a few perspectives from various educational stakeholders. And that was Jesse G's favorite part. I've had a few. Had a couple of teachers walk into my classroom and tell me they that was the first episode they listened to, and they loved it, and now they're chewing gum with us as well. And all of these were great episodes. This year, guys, just on a note, I was happy to have gotten my first followers in the country of Finland. And I think I took a question from someone in Finland a couple of episodes back. But Karina from Finland, her favorite episode was still celebrating the class of 2020. And Karina, I don't know if you were one of the students or someone who followed Instagrad 2020 last year and then you found Let's Chew the Gum. I don't know if that was your connection, but the fact that was your favorite episode makes me happy. Shout out to you and those of you in Finland, 2020 graduates. As I said, that was a program that celebrated students of all ages around the world. As long as they were graduating in 2020, they were honored. It didn't matter if they were from kindergarten graduation, 8th grade, 5th grade, high school, college, 12-step programs, technical schools, food academies, police academies. Didn't matter where you graduated from. Instagrad 2020 was made for you. And again, the website is still up, and you never know. I still may be, and I am actually still honoring those graduates. Hence the name of that episode, still celebrating the class of 2020. Check out the website, instagrad2020.net. There's more. Thank you, Karina. Thank you. Man, this is exciting for me to see where this idea for the podcast started, and to see now so many individuals listening and involved and engaged and caring about these topics is great. So thank you, Karina. All right, the last favorite episode from a listener comes from Marquez from Quebec in Canada. All right, Marquez. His favorite episode was Storming the Capitol. Yeah, that was an interesting episode, an interesting time historically. Definitely gave us lots of headlines and lots of opportunity to talk about history here in the United States and constitutional rights and the rights of citizens, and provided lots of dialogue, right? So that was Marquez's favorite episode, Storming the Capitol, which was an event that happened here in the United States, as you guys will remember, where several groups marched on the Capitol and then took it a step further and scaled the walls and broke the windows and unfortunately hurt some people. And for some, it was not the best exhibition of democracy, and for others, they thought, the quintessential exhibition of democracy. See, again, it wasn't, it's not I don't know how to say that. Maybe it's, when I teach history, I don't teach it as right and wrong to put value statements on it, but presenting the information. And we all have our biases and opinions, I suppose. But that provided lots of dialogue to discuss. So that was Marquez's favorite episode. That was fantastic. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for. I don't want to lose my winner's paper. The winner's coming up soon. I have it written on this paper, and I wanted to make sure that it stayed right here in front of me, and there it is. So you are not forgotten. All right, man. This has been so great. I don't know what you guys are doing today. Again, some of you around the world, it's already New Year's. Some are probably already deep into the celebration and post celebration sleeping. So I'm looking forward to that. What are you guys looking forward to most for the next year? I haven't gotten that far yet. For me, it's a continuum of what's happening now. Again, daily self-reflection is something that I do now. I hope to continue with that, to improve as a person each and every day, as an individual, for myself and for others around me. What are you guys most looking forward to? Send your emails to letschewthegum@gmail.com. I'd like to take that up as a show topic, perhaps. Speaking of show topics, man, make sure you guys stay tuned for, you've been here this long. Stay tuned for the year. Some new things coming up, some exciting guests, exciting times, and a lot of interaction. I'm looking forward to it. Man, I can't believe 50 episodes. Wouldn't have thought it. All right. Let's see. So now, without further ado, no, this is not the prize, but here are, and I told you I'd bring on the top. I'll let you know what are the top episodes based upon listeners. So we've heard questions from the audience or from the listeners about their favorite episode, or what my favorite episodes were. We did sort of the superlatives, the most this, the most that, the favorite, the funnest, the inspiring, the most serious, the most negative feedback. Folks asked questions about New Year's resolutions and Native American History Month and challenges when doing a podcast, investigative journalism, and why did I focus on this and that and the other. It's been great. You guys have no idea. I love this. I love this. This is great. As a teacher, it's nothing better than having students provide feedback where they thought about some things. And, as a podcast host, it's nothing better for me than engaging with my audience. I hope all the best for all of you. So, again, here are the top 5 episodes. It's interesting. Many of your favorites were from 2021 and 2020 and other times, but it's interesting. I'll say that the top 5 episodes all came from 2020, the most listened to. And I wonder if it was that because of COVID, where people had more time to listen in, or what. I don't know, but it's great that many of you who were day ones are still here, and I'm always happy to bring others on board. Hey, I have a resolution for you. All you listeners, resolve to spread this podcast to 5 other people. Share this podcast with 5 others that you know. Listen to it together. Get them involved. Let's chew gum together. All right. Looking forward to that. So here we go. Drum roll. Okay, no drum roll, but in your mind, drum roll. I know many of you just made the sound, or you probably just started doing a drum roll on the table. That's awesome. Number 5 was from April 7th of 2020. And the title of that episode was Distance Education. Access, equity, and understanding. Distance education, access, equity, and understanding. That was a pretty great episode. That was with a colleague of mine, Angela DeRamos. She did a fantastic episode with me. I have to tell you guys, I intended to bring each person on from the episode that we have here, the favorites list, and again, didn't happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but so grateful for all of them. All right. So this episode discussed the ins and out of distance education and how it affected other people and different aspects and different ways and what was it about. And this is from May. We were just getting into all the Zoom classes and whatnot, so it provided a lot of insight and opportunity to dialogue for individuals who were experiencing distance education for the first time. So shout out there. All right, that's number 5. Number 4, a close number 4, was Whose Lives Matter? Whose Lives Matter? That was from June 5th of 2020, and that was a great episode. We had the whole, Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, and people taking sides again. There we go again with the binary, either or. I'm really pushing for that alt-white party. We can have an alt-whatever party, but just alternative parties for people that have common sense, common decency, and have a common love of humanity and want to see things differently than what we've experienced before. But the Whose Lives Matter was all about that. It's a great episode I did. Go ahead and check that out. I think that might be the only episode in the top where there was not a guest on. All right, so that was from June 5th. Number three was Planning for Improvement and Empowerment for All Ages, and that was done with my colleague, Dr. Shara Richardson. That was from June 23rd of 2020. And if you're not planning for improvement and empowerment, or if you haven't had a chance to hear that episode, please listen in. She provides some great insight into that arena. Very empowering, very inspiring episode. Planning for improvement. We're getting so close to the number 1 show that we've had. I'm getting so close to announcing who won. I'm going to peek one more time. Who won the $50 plus? I have to peek one more time. Oh my goodness. I wish I could give it to lots of people. All right. Well, here we go. Number two, the number 2 episode. This should have been among my favorite just because of what happened after this episode aired. But the number 2 episode, the top 2, was Perspective, Perception, and Product. Art is more than just about art. Perspective, Perception, and Product. Art is more than just about art. This was a great episode with the phenomenal individual, Mr. Brian Owens, a renowned sculptor, artist, a great mind, just a great person. And it just so happens that I've known Brian Owens since before I knew myself. Okay. And he's just phenomenal. And we did a show just about the perspectives, how art is about perspectives and people's insight and their perception, and then this product. And it really is more than just about art. You get a chance, check out the episode, and you'll get some links to his phenomenal work and some projects he was commissioned to do. Quite a bit of work in the southeastern portion of the United States. Just a great show. I say this should have been my favorite because soon after, this episode of the podcast became a required listening for not 1, but 2 university courses in the state of Florida. And that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. So the students are now required to, as a part of their course, review this particular episode. I give all credit to Brian. It couldn't have been me. I mean, if I have 50 episodes, but 1 is picked for as a requirement for college courses, I give all credit to Brian for that and the fantastic insight and information that he shared. But yeah, so maybe that should have been my favorite. If you didn't get a chance, man, go listen to that one. Number 2, Perspective, Perception, and Product. Art is more than just about art. That aired on May 5th of 2020. Again, guys, all these episodes are still up. You can listen to them anytime. Again, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Podbean, Podcaster, iTunes, iHeartMusic, YouTube. They're everywhere you can find a podcast to download. You'll find them, and they're pretty worthwhile. And they must be, because 2 universities thought so enough to make that particular episode a college course required listen. How about that? All right. I've known this for quite a while, what the number one is. I've known 1 through 5 for a while, but particularly I've known what the number 1 episode is. I do check my analytics. Thank you again to all of you from around the world. You guys, it's not, with me, it's not about numbers. It's about impact. And you can have a great impact with just a few people, just as you can have a great impact with large numbers. And for me, it's all about the sharing and the caring that you guys have shared with me, and shown your care for what I'm doing here, and your support for me to continue to do it. So thank you again. Thank you for 2020, for the 50 episodes. And this has been great. We're moving into a new year, 2022. I hope that it brings all that you need it to be. And if not, understand that we don't always get what we want when we want it, right? But it can happen. Keep writing into the show. I'm always listening, right? You have show topic ideas. You have a question or comment. As you see, I freely read them out on the air, and it's all welcome. Thank you so much. This show has grown over the 4 seasons, starting with just having listeners in pretty much the United States, to now having listeners again in over 50 countries. Now, the last time I spoke to you, it was 50. We're at just over 50. And for me, for it to be the 50th episode, and it's just over 50 countries, that's phenomenal. So follow your dreams as well. All right, folks, the number 1 episode for Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum, is Los Angeles oldie but goodie music scene. Los Angeles is, that's hard to say that. Los Angeles' oldie but goodie music scene. That's the number 1 listened to, downloaded, re-listened to, paused and replayed and talked about episode. That was with an exclusive interview with Tony Bayan, who was a member of several groups in the LA music scene. He sang with different groups from, I believe, the 60s, could be the 50s, but I think definitely the 60s through the 80s. Phenomenal episode. I was sitting with him a couple of months back, listening to some other music that he had brought up, and it was fantastic. This particular song, and I'll put since it's the number 1 listen to, I'll put it into the episode so you can hear it. But we were listening to this song that he had done with the group, and found out that it was recently sampled by Nas. And I had a brief encounter with an individual whose father was a colleague of Tony Bayan, and I thought for a second we were going to make that connection to get those 2 together, but hadn't heard back from him. But he asked me a question, was, Mr. Bayan still alive? I said, yeah, I'm sitting right here right now talking to him, listening to this song on YouTube. And he had talked about how his father, who was in this band, the group, also was still alive, yada, 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 yada. And we hadn't made that connection. So if you're listening, or if anybody out there can help me make that connection, not only that one, but with any of these band members, that'd be great. Because I am, as a part of On Watch TV, also working on some stories and what. I can't say too much. I don't want to say much more, but if you can make that connection, that'd be great. So the Los Angeles oldie but goodie music scene, the exclusive phone interview with Tony Bayan, that was the number 1 listened to, downloaded episode. And that's phenomenal also. Well, folks, I hope you didn't hear that my stomach was growling. Maybe I'm hungry, right? I'm coming to the end and my stomach is letting me know. It's been phenomenal. I really don't want to end the episode. This might be the longest episode of all 4 seasons. I don't, could be definitely the longest one of this year or season 4. But it's been great. I can't express enough. I've said it so many times throughout this episode, just how much I appreciate all of you. And I truly do. Before I forget, and I can't forget, I have to give away this $50 plus. All right. So we've gone through all of the contributors through email. We've gone through all of the favorites and superlatives. The person that is winning the $50 randomly selected is Jackie from the Standing Rock Sioux. Jackie, congratulations. I'll be in touch with you to make sure that that gets to you. Everyone else, you're a winner to me. You're all winners to me. Thank you again. The happiest of New Year's to you. Let's make 2022 different. We thank you so much. This is, again, Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum. And guys, as you know, we always have
Something for your